G'day, Rockhound here! In the first video in the series where I look at different aspects of the finals now that Closed Beta 2 has been completed and we're waiting for whatever comes next, I looked at movement in the game. So what's next? Well, as a reminder, as part of Closed Beta 2, Embark Studios have shared a 6-part series of podcasts called Meet the Makers, with each episode being a Q&A with a couple of the game's developers, artists, production team, and so on. Again, I've popped a link to that podcast series in the video description below for you, and I suggest that you check them out. They're really insightful. One of the episodes featured Gustav Tilleby, the game's creative director, and Matt Lowe, the design director, and as part of that they discussed game modes. So in this episode I want to look specifically at the finals game modes, and later in the video I'm going to present my own idea for a game mode for the finals that I've come up with, so I'm keen to hear your thoughts on all of this. As part of the Meet the Makers podcast, Matt Lowe gave us some real insight into how the game's core Cashout mode came into existence in the first place, and also what modes might be yet to come. He said, early on when we were looking at Cashout, we actually tried it with just a single life version. So in a tournament you'd go in, there was revives, but you only had one life to try and get all the way through the tournament. And that was part of what nudged us a bit towards the multiple team side of things as well, rather than two head-to-head teams. And obviously, as you play these things over time, you learn what works and what doesn't. And then we kind of decided maybe we don't want elimination so early, so we started spawn systems and those kind of things. And so it kind of evolved from that core. So it was a lot of experimentation as well. There's not many games that have this kind of level of destruction. It's quite a new design space to try out. We've probably been through 60 different game modes over the last few years, just trying out lots of different things to go, what does destruction do to this? Does it work or doesn't it work? When asked about additional modes coming to the game, Matt said, there's definitely other ways we think the game can be played, and modes that would benefit from the destruction and dynamism that we have, and the physics, and the server-side movement and so on. So we absolutely want to explore that stuff. Matt went on to say that some of it would likely be in smaller kind of seasonal modes. When we look at some other free-to-play shooters, we like that they experiment with modes. Sometimes you can have a really good game mode, but it's only going to work for a couple of weeks before people are like, okay, I've had a lot of fun, but I'm kind of done with it. But that doesn't make those experiences any less valid. So I think we'd love to explore that kind of stuff. We'd love to explore modes with different team sizes or team numbers. So I don't know if I have anything to sneak peek or leak, but we are absolutely thinking about those kind of things, and that we'd love to try out some different game modes and different experiences as well. Because ultimately, that's part of keeping the game fresh in the long term. And I think Embark really have to do exactly what Matt said. Even if you love a particular mode in a game, sometimes you just need to play a different version of the game to keep things interesting. In Closed Beta 1, there really was only one game mode, 3v3v3v3 Cashout, which was presented to us in two formats. Quick Play, which was just a single round of Cashout, and a 4-stage tournament format. Then in Closed Beta 2, we got variations on both of those modes. Instead of Quick Play, we had Quick Cash, which Embark described as a casual-friendly variant of Cashout in a 3v3v3 format. This updated mode has longer matches, faster respawn timers, faster extraction times, and only 1 vault at a time. Now you might recall that 3 teams of 3 was a change that I had previously suggested in my review of the game during Closed Beta 1 as a way of reducing the high levels of chaos that often occurred from having 4 teams of 3, especially when all 4 teams ended up in one location. So I was really pleased that Embark Studios decided to try that game mode in Closed Beta 2. The tournaments for Closed Beta 2, on the other hand, came in 2 modes, which were ranked and unranked, and structured as 3 rounds of the original 3v3v3v3. So Closed Beta 2 would have been a great opportunity for Embark to more or less compare the 3 teams of 3 and 4 teams of 3 modes side by side, albeit in a single round versus a tournament. Now the Embark team hasn't made any comment about how, in their view, that comparison of team structures went. I enjoyed the 3 teams of 3 structure, but I get that others might prefer 4 teams of 3. And to be fair, I don't see why we can't have both. I think whatever form or forms Cashout takes at the game's release, it's already a super fun and solid game mode, and one that can absolutely be at the core of what the finals is for the game's lifetime. However, I also think that the game will feel incomplete if it doesn't cater for players who want to play other modes, whether they be more well-known modes like Deathmatch or Capture the Flag, or maybe something else that's completely new. The maps and the server-side destruction in the finals are something very special, and I can't imagine for a moment that there won't be some other modes that are really fun to play, as long as they always lean into those fundamental and unique features of the game as a whole. Also, when Embark adds seasonal modes to the game, I do hope that they keep an open mind, so if the community latches on to a particular mode that was originally planned as a short-term mode, they show flexibility and consider adding modes to the game more permanently if there's clearly community demand for it. Finally, I'd like to throw an original idea for a game mode into the ring and hear your thoughts on it. I came up with this idea when I was thinking about how well the maps provide such varied locations for engagements. For instance, on the Soul map, which I think is especially good for this, one moment you can be in the hospital building and you're trying to bust through the walls or the floor to get into a single room that a team is defending, and then a minute later you're attacking a team in a courtyard below you from the rooftops. Throw the server-side destruction into that and those gunfights can morph as you change the environment around you. However, the Cashout station locations in the existing Cashout mode, understandably, tend to narrow down those locations where engagements occur throughout a round. But what if the areas of focus moved, but in a more flexible way than the moving platforms on the Soul map? So this question is how I've come up with a mode that I'm simply nicknaming Target. But in short, maybe think of it as a King of the Hill mode, where the hill moves across the map in order to play in favour of the server-side destruction and movement. Here's how Target would play out. The mode consists of a time round with 3 teams of 4, with the highest scoring team winning the round. At the start of the round, the teams spawn into the map and can immediately see that there is a single point scoring zone, or target, located somewhere on the map. The target is pretty much equidistant from all teams at the start of the round, so they're going to arrive there at about the same time. The target is comprised of 3 concentric point scoring rings, so if you look down on it from above, it would kind of look like a giant archery target. Initially, the target remains in a fixed location, but as soon as any player enters the outer point scoring ring of the target, it will begin to move on a random path across the map. The target moves unimpeded by the environment, so it passively passes through walls, buildings, or whatever part of the environment is in its path. Kind of like a battle royale circle can move across a map, except the target doesn't shrink like a BR circle does. The target will continue to move across the map so long as players are anywhere inside its boundaries, and it will move faster the more players there are within its boundaries, and also with the more players that are inside its central rings. The target will also slow down its movement if players leave the central rings or its boundaries altogether. If the target ever becomes empty of players during a round, it will stop moving completely until a player re-enters its boundaries. The goal of the mode, therefore, is to have as many of your team members in the centermost area of the target for as much of the round as you can, because this will accumulate points faster for your team throughout the round. The middle and outer rings of the target will also score, but more slowly respectively. So your team has 2 primary objectives. You need to defend the target area while you're in it, and you also need to move your team across the map, whether that means simply by moving along with the target or also by destroying a path through walls ahead of you so that your team can keep moving with it. If you're an attacking team, you need to try and eliminate enemy players within the target's boundaries, which will both slow the target's movement and also allow you to take over the central high point scoring zones. Of course, as soon as you do this, the target will start to move across the map more quickly, and your team then needs to start moving with it while defending that central ring. The movement of the target does 2 things for the mode. It means that the location of the engagements is constantly changing, giving us loads of variety, and it provides a challenge for the team that's scoring fastest by being in the center of the target, because they can't just remain in one location like a fort. They have to push along while simultaneously defending their position in the target. Now, there's still some loose ends to resolve in this idea, like how do respawns work, for instance, but what do you think of Target as a possible additional mode? Do you think it's something that Embark could explore? And if not, what other modes would you prefer to see included in the game at its release? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content from my channel. Give a like or comment as you see fit, and enjoy the rest of your day. Kia kaha, stay strong.
Everybody knows the world ain't right. Down on your knees, get up and fight.